Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland.
Powerful and provocative. Prophetic and practical.
Have you ever found yourself?
Are you dating for that person?
Informative and
I feel
inspirational.
every bit of it. Like, I'm not trying to waste my
How you gonna do better if you don't know what better looks like? I do.
Intellectual stew.
Come on, let's talk about it with me, the mind massager.
Intellectual. Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew.
Who's there? Say hello now. Let me see if I got it. I got to share this a couple times, then I promise you we'll get started. I am sorry. I'm sorry. But say hello. Let me see your comments. Let me see if they don't show up now. Please. And if they don't show up, guess what?
Intellectual stew.
Say hi, say something. Let me know you're there, please. Like I said, we'll get this conversation started.
Intellectual stew. Intellectual stew with James Kirkland.
Yep. Oh no. All right. Yeah, I need y'all to speak to me. Okay, I see you. I see YouTube. Let me see. I need somebody that's on Facebook to say hello so I can see if I got my comments. I didn't have my comments a minute ago. And so I had to go out and come back in. So if you all
Intellectual
checking out for me, I appreciate you. I'll move to it fast. All right, there we go. I got my Facebook. I got my Facebook. What's up, BK Christopher? What's up, Miss Milton? How y'all doing? All right, let me turn this music off because we are kind of short. I was starting a little bit late anyway tonight. That's fine. All right, let me turn this music off. All right, so here I am. What's up? What it do? Time for another episode of the Intellectual Stew with yours truly, James Kirkland. I want to thank all of you all for bearing with me tonight. I have a special guest that's going to come and join me a minute ago, so let me help him get on because I had to change streams. So I had him initially, but for whatever reason, my Facebook comments weren't showing up. So I needed to go out and come back in. And so now that we have that rectified, we're going to move forward with the conversation that we have set up for tonight. Last week, we started a subject called looking at the different attachment styles. I told you all, those that listened last week, I'm doing something in full transparency that I've never done in my 51 years of living. I might have showed up a couple of times to sessions, but I never really took it seriously. But I'm doing therapy right now. I'm doing therapy, and I'm kind of excited about it. Because it's different. It's a safe space. It allows you to go and talk with someone, and I'm kind of enjoying it. And last week, she was kind of talking me through a specific issue, and as she's talking me through this issue, she asked me, was I familiar with the different attachment styles? She asked me if I was familiar with the different attachment styles, and I told her no. So I did some research on the different attachment styles, and if you go back a little bit farther on my page, you can see a quiz if you want to know what your particular attachment style is. It's because there are 4 different attachment styles, one of which is secure, and the other 3 are insecure. Secure is a secured attachment. The 3 that are not secure are the avoidant, avoidant, the ambivert, anxiety, and the disorganized. Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate that. And then the disorganized. Now, last week we got kind of deep off into the subject, and we kind of dealt with the secured attachment. Hey, Elder Lisa, how you doing? We dealt with the secured attachment, and we dealt with the 2 of the insecure. We dealt with the ambivert, anxiety, and we dealt with the what's the other one? The avoidant. We dealt with the avoidant. And what we learned in essence about those different attachment styles, right, is that how we are attached, or how we're dealt with in our infancy stages, right? It kind of shapes or paints the roadmap for the rest of our lives as it relates to to how we're going to relate even in our adulthood, right? For instance, if every time the baby cries, right, mama or daddy or somebody that's going to be familiar shows up, and when they show up, they got a bottle in their hand, or they got some water in their hand, or they're going to pick me up and put my head on their shoulder and rock me to sleep. We're establishing, we learned last week, a pattern, right? And that could be a secured attachment. But then there are some insecure attachments. For instance, the ambivert anxiety approach. This is the way we attach to people, even in our adult relationships. They're shapen by how we were dealt with in our childhood. Like I told you about the secure attachment, but then one of the insecure attachment is the anxious or ambivalent attachment. This is a type of insecure attachment where these people tend to be wary of getting close to others and worry whether or not a romantic partner loves them or not. See, children who are attached like this, they're suspicious of strangers. And they're distressed when they're separated from their caregivers. But unlike securely attached children, those with this type of attachment don't seem to be comforted when the parent returns, right? So but we don't understand how these patterns are established as we grow. All right. Are your results were different? Okay, cool. Now, there's another one, and I don't want to get into that too much. I really hoping my guest gets in. He's trying to get in now. Doc, if I don't see you, when I see you, I'm gonna bring you on. I don't. Let me make sure you're not on this screen. I think you're still on the old thread, because if you look in your inbox, if you're listening to me, if you look in your inbox, the last link that I sent you, that's the one I want you to click on. I'm talking to my guest if he hears me, y'all. But he's about to jump in with me in a minute, and we're going to talk about this, because the one I really want to get into now, Elder Lisa, so you can't finish my sentence. You got to give me a full sentence for me to know what you're talking about, because you said to a certain extent, because I said a whole lot in that little moment right there. When you said a certain extent, what are you referring to? Let me hold on. Let me check in I want to get him on for real, because it's some certain things I really want to deal with tonight, and I trust his expertise. Okay. So you have clicked on a link. I just don't see you. I don't see you. Hold on, I'm going to call him, guys. Let me see if I can help him get on. Yeah, I promise this is improper etiquette, and I wouldn't normally do this, but I got to get my guest on tonight. So give me a hot second. Hey, what are you seeing? What are you seeing? Because I don't see you at all. It's the last link that I just clicked, because remember, the first link, that's gone now. So make sure you click on that last link so we can go ahead and get them. We're already on, so they hear me on the phone. They say I'm being super rude, but I told them I got to get you on. So I'll let them think I'm rude for a moment. Y'all bear with me. But the one we're going to talk about now is a disorganized attachment style. And I guess I did a little research. Hold on, let me see. Somebody just said something before I clicked. As a child who experienced trauma and attachment from, okay, let me read Elder Lisa's. She said, as a child who experienced trauma and detachment from a young age, I've experienced all phases. I did. And I get that, Elder Lisa. My research showed that the styles can change. They don't always have to stay the same. They don't have to stay the same. Yeah. So no, I get that. And all of that happens as a result of work. If you do the work, you can definitely change. And I'm a firm believer that environment and orientation play a large role in how we respond and our outcomes. I'm a firm believer in that. Hold on, I'm gonna put him on speakerphone so I can keep going. Hopefully, I won't be able to hear him with my microphone on. All right, so when we talk about disorganized, because like I said, I told y'all I'm in therapy now. So the reason I'm kind of dealing with this even more is because, like, I started this conversation last week, and with starting this conversation, I didn't realize that it was Men's Mental Health Month, right? And with this whole mental health thing, man, it's interesting times, man. People have losing 401ks and, and losing their jobs and, and going through divorces and breakups and they're going through real life mental challenges, right? And it makes you wonder, as the stressors of life, as we endure and encounter the stressors of life, how do we respond to them? You know what I mean? And when they weigh heavily, how heavily, if we put them on a scale, is it 50 pounds? Is it 10 pounds? Is it 20 pounds? And can I handle what Miss Milton can't handle? And can Miss Milton handle what Phoenicia can't handle? And all of these things, right? And we just never know what somebody might be going through. We just never know when somebody is on the verge of snapping. You know what I'm saying? I used to hear people use the colloquial expression, especially in church, he kept my mind. They touching their head, talking about he kept my mind. But that whole statement hits different when it almost feels like you're about to lose your mind. That whole statement hits different when it's kind of like, the Midas touch turns into the mud touch. You know what I mean? It kind of like, when the stuff that used to work, none of that stuff works anymore, because now you're having to deal with real life issues. And these real life issues, man, they have a way of literally wearing you down. And in that moment, when those triggers present themselves, right? When in that moment, when you're faced with the crossroad, of how am I going to allow anxiety to build, or am I going to mentally check out, or what's going to happen? Because in that moment, the brain has to make a decision, and those that have disorganized attachment styles, their brains have trouble when real trouble when it comes to making a good decision. Yeah. See a person that let me get to my notes good here. See, let me read this. Disorganized attachment is the most extreme insecure attachment style, also known as fearful avoidant. It develops from a parent's consistent failure to respond appropriately to their child's distress, or by a parent's inconsistent response to their child's fear and distress. When people have this attachment style, They have a strong desire for intimate connection, but also put up walls to protect themselves from getting hurt, like anger, defensiveness, blame. This attachment style is characterized by fear, mistrust, and inner conflict. Listen, a person with this attachment style might be clingy at one time and emotionally distant at other times. It's typically a response to parents who have been abusive or neglectful. The brain can't figure out a good strategy when it comes to relationships. A child with a disorganized attachment style might feel both fear and comfort toward their caregiver, which can be confusing. Now, this attachment style, I'm still trying to get my guest in here. Hey, hold on. Let me tell him to check your email, because I sent it to your email. This attachment style is more closely associated with mental illness. And so, since this is Mental Illness Month, this is kind of something that I kind of wanted to deal with. All right. So now there are two forms of behavior that have been observed in disorganized children, which are not seen in secure, avoidant, or anxious children. One is contradictory behavior. That means that they can vacillate in behavior patterns. Like 1 minute they can have strong avoidance, but the next minute they have strong contact seeking, or distress combined with avoidance. For instance, they might cry for their mother when they've been separated, but once their mama comes, and the child doesn't really want to deal with the mother. They can't be comforted. They have contradictory behavior patterns that shows up in adulthood. Let me go a little further. Also, they might have fearful or apprehensive behavior. For example, the child might seem afraid or wary of the parent, even while seeking comfort from the parent. Okay, I got him now. Does that make sense? Hold on, let me bring Dr. Evins in. We've been struggling with this. Hold on. We've been struggling with this technology tonight, Doc, but I rebuke the devil. Shayden, I rebuke you. Shake the devil out. Hold on a second. Dr. Evins.
Hey, man.
How you doing? You good? You good tonight?
I am good. What about you, Doc?
Man, I'm well, man. What I've been doing, man, is I've been setting the stage for the question that I told you I wanted to ponder. Last we started talking about the different attachment styles, and we dealt with the secure attachment style, and then the three insecure being anxious, ambivalent, what's the other? Avoidant, and the disorganized. I dealt with anxious, ambivalent, and avoidant last week, but tonight I really started dealing with the disorganized. Disorganized is, from what in my research, is a mixture of different styles, parental contacts as a child, that confuses the child because the child doesn't know how to. They kind of vacillate. I was just talking a minute ago about how they have contradictory patterns when it comes to dealing with people, because sometimes they want to be comforted, sometimes they don't want to be comforted. They might be crying for their mother, but when the mother gets there, then they really don't. They're still afraid of the mother. You know, different types of things. And from my research, it seems to show that this attachment style is more closely associated with mental health, mental problems. And so I kind of wanted to deal with it from that standpoint. And you can just tell me if I'm wrong. Y'all that don't know, this is Dr. Ray Evins. Well, I call him doctor, but it's Ray Evins. He's a therapist there in Mississippi. He has about 100 and some odd therapists under his leadership there in that state. And so he's very qualified. And when I have these types of discussions, I like to bring people in who are qualified, because they validate what we're talking about. And if I get off, they can correct me. I don't mind being corrected. You know what I mean? I'm not beyond reproach. So When I get off, please, ma'am, please, sir. So, Doc, you've been listening so far, and we're going to continue to talk about some of the characteristics of avoidant, and we're going to get into our question in a few minutes. But you've been listening. What can you tell us about attachment styles and how what we learn in infancy affects us in adulthood?
I mean, from the cradle, we start to learn from our parents, and there's various traumas that individuals report remembering as young as 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about things happening, the memory is an amazing thing to really capture moments that we would not remember in the natural setting. But when there's trauma, when there's things that frighten us, we remember them quite vividly and clearly, even though they may have happened prior to us starting, school.
Mm-hmm.
So that is how strong the mind is.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that from the cradle on up, children are influenced by the behaviors, their interactions with their parents.
Yeah. And Doc, I remember a story. I remember a story, and I preached about it. I think it was about I put it in a sermon a long time ago. And it took place in my home state of Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
And it was talking about a severe case of abuse, child abuse. And they said when the officers went to the house to rescue the little girl, they asked her what her name was.
Uh-huh.
You know what this little girl said?
What's that?
She said her name was Idiot. Because she had been called idiot so much that she had forgotten her real name. So that when the name opportunity was when they asked her what her name was, she answered by what she was called. And so when you start talking about the mind recording these things as young as 4 years old, and according to these studies, seem like some of it might even be younger than that, as far as how, as we start to develop these attachment styles, right?
Well, if you think about the power of fear,
okay.
If you think about the power of trauma, so you're looking at the anxious to the avoidance being the most unhealthy styles of attachment.
Okay. And then the disorganized, according to what I'm looking at, because the disorganized is the one that they're saying is the one that's closer associated to mental health. Let me give you some of the characteristics that they said are associated with. They said someone who has developed a disorganized attachment style as a child. This is how the disorganized attachment style can show up as an adult. Poor coping skills, lack of coping strategies, erratic behavior, difficulty dealing with relational issues, unpredictability, volatility, difficulty trusting others, extreme need for closeness, couples with tendency to avoid and push others away, aggressive behavior towards caregivers and partners, negative self-image, low self-worth, deep-rooted shame, feelings of unlovable, inadequate, or unworthy. They're saying that if you have developed this disorganized style, that these are the characteristics that show up in adulthood, because they're a mixture of avoidant and anxious. You feel what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because they loving and hating the parent out of the same breath, because they don't know if this child is going to come in here and yell at me today or go and take me to go buy a pair of tennis shoes this afternoon. Because they can't interpret as a child. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, it's the parent's instability that causes the extreme anxiety, which is associated with fear. So when you talk about wanting to be loved, but then not trusting the people who love you, that is a direct effect of living with that disorganized attachment.
Yeah. Say that again, Doc. I think you just blessed me, and I didn't even realize. Let me catch that. Say that one more time, please.
Okay, if I can remember it.
Oh, do your best.
The when we talk about the effects of having the disorganized attachment, one of the things that it does, it causes a person to strongly desire to be loved and accepted. But at the same time, the fear causes them to, well, they fear those who are closest to them also.
That's scary.
So you want it, but you're not prepared or you're not developed enough to handle it.
Wow.
And when you, man, that even struck a nerve with me.
Yes, sir. That just blessed me.
Because it's such a profound thing to know that this was a cause that started in your childhood, but it will continue in your adulthood if not confronted.
Wow. That's good. That's good. All right. So let me give you some of the other characteristics of those who might have had a disorganized attachment style. They said these people are those that suffer with mental health problems. They're scared. There's dysregulation and disassociation. They're combative or they don't speak up. They're unpredictable. They're either push or pull, and they find it painful to be in therapy. Why? Because those individuals are forced to face themselves.
Yes.
What do you think that is?
Well, I just think it goes to the idea of not knowing what to expect to the degree that you carry that into your adult relationships, the uncertainty, and usually it is not something that has a cause, meaning the person you're in a relationship is not acting in a way that should cause you to feel a certain way, or actually to think a certain thing. This is coming from you, and sometimes we cast it upon others when it has nothing to do with it. And I can tell you this: if you don't confront it, if you don't deal with it, it will be a potential relationship destroyer, regardless of how much the person loves you. You won't let them love you.
Ooh, you won't let them love you.
Yeah,
wow.
You won't let them love you because of your own fear. Fear is a powerful thing. And then when we talk about a Christian and when we talk about relationship, if you fear intimacy, then how can you relate to anyone? You're always guarded.
Yeah, that's okay. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. All right, and so that's a good. Thank you. Hey, Mary. Hey, Lisa. Hey, Brother Perry. What's going on, man? I got to get you on. Brother Perry can speak about this issue very practically, very very practically. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get him on soon. Y'all, I ain't gonna lie. I'm flipping between the basketball game and 2 baseball games, and I'm focusing on my show. Y'all, that shows you how disheveled I am. My mind's going 4, 5. I got 5 screens up right now, but it's all good. But Doc, you and I have had a private conversation, and we won't make that conversation public. But because Doc is like one of my counselors. He's never sent me an invoice, y'all. So thank God for that. But Doc did write the foreword in my book. So the reason I asked him to write the foreword is because he walked me through a lot of the steps I went through after my divorce inadvertently. We just as friends, and then we kind of we met on a whim. Trey went down there for a baseball camp long time ago. Trey was in the 11th, 12th grade. I stopped by the church, prayed altar call, and we just kind of became friends. After that, and we might not talk for a couple of months at a time, but whenever we do talk, it's a very substantive conversation, and I feel like our iron has definitely, well, he has his half. I don't know if I got my half on the iron or not, but he definitely has his half. But anyway, he talked me through a lot of this. So, and he's kind of been, even with me having therapy, because he's encouraging me in that area, but he still talked me through some other things, because I called him a couple of weeks ago, and I ain't gonna lie, I was ready, man. I was kind of going through it, you know, and it was some things, and I'm usually a pretty rational person, you know. I usually don't, and my dad always told me a man is one that maintains control at all times. So I'd always kind of managed myself, you know, kind of prided myself on being able to maintain control, right? But it seemed like the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, I kind of felt like I lost it. I ain't gonna lie. I felt, and this is just total transparency. I felt like I lost it. I didn't want to get in front of this microphone. Didn't want to get out of bed a lot of those days. You know, I just sit at home and just watch TV, you know, and go to work whenever I had to go to work. And that was a season, even one of those weeks, God gave me work that week to make sure he got me out of the house. And I appreciated him for that, because those were some tough times. I ain't gonna lie. And I had to talk to Doc on some of those things. And I ain't gonna lie. And there were times, you know, I'm like, why am I thinking like this? Like, you know, I'm sitting there saying to myself, like, dude, I mean, do you know who you are? You know, and then I just got through writing a book talking about being stuck on the couch, but hell, now I'm laying in the bed, you know, and I'm like, you know, and the couch is really a metaphor, you know, and so I'm going through this thing, and then I finally ask, and I'm in therapy, and I'm talking, and you know, I'm learning different terms, and I'm learning different tactics and different approaches to situations, and how to visualize when I get to a certain point where it seems like anxiety is about to kick in, that at that point I have a choice, you know, and if I can kick that choice in quick enough, then, you know, I can avoid, you know, the negatives as it relates to those things, right? I'm learning these things, but then I had to ask this question, Doc, and I'm going to ask you, and I would just want you to answer to the best, because I asked my audience today, and we're going to listen to some of their answers in a few minutes, but I want to ask you, and I'm going to ask my audience as well that are listening tonight, do you think it's possible for a person to lose their mind? Because you hear people say that all the time. You know, old folk in the country, oh, you know that boy touched. Well, if he's touched, was he always touched? You know what I'm saying? Was he born with a chemical imbalance, you know, that, you know, might have been mentally, you know, retarded? I don't like to say that word, you know, I don't know what the proper word is to say these days, you know, but going through all of these things, is it possible from someone who is a learned man from Mississippi State University, qualified? I want to know, is it possible for a person to lose their mind?
The correct terminology is probably a psychotic break.
Okay, teach us tonight.
And my first experience, I have a very personal experience with a psychotic break. And I tell the story. This is how my two worlds collided. Being in church as a boy, maybe 11 or 12, and watching a woman come to the church, and church ends that Sunday with her having what we refer to then as a nervous breakdown.
Mm.
And this happened in church. This happened with two of my best friends' mother.
Okay.
And I was so scared that night until I could lay in bed and hear my heart beating. I didn't know what to think of it. I didn't know how to process it. But now, if you go back to causes of a psychotic break, there are genetic predispositions that a person can have. And of course, there's trauma. Then we could look at such thing as drug use. There are individuals who have not momentary, psychotic breaks that reflect some type of biological or chemical effect. The perfect example of that is a 17-year-old using alcohol, and every time he used alcohol, he had a psychotic episode. At first, it was liquor, and then I guess he would tell his friend, "I can't drink liquor." Then it was beer, and then the doctor finally told him, "You can't drink any alcohol because that's the way it affects your body." So you know, just our genetic makeup, trauma, drug use, brain injuries, other medical conditions, and also the one that gets many people, simply stress.
Okay.
You know, my medical condition, when I can't remember the age, I had a real high fever.
Mm-hmm.
And that night I experienced now what I know to be a psychotic episode.
Wow.
I was in bed and it's like I was running. and I couldn't stop. My mind was just racing, just one thing after the other. And I didn't even tell my parents because I didn't want them to think something was wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
But now I had a real high fever. So that's an example of a medical condition that happened to my sister also, that we found quite comical when we were older teens.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor was giving her instruction, and she was looking at the doctor like she couldn't even understand English.
Okay.
But there was a specific medical condition that raised, she had a real high fever as a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Feeling like you're losing a grip on life that causes you to be dysfunctional in your daily living. It is when the person stops bathing, stop brushing their teeth. And sometimes employers, sometimes co-workers are able to see that and know that something is going on.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Let me slow you down a little bit. So you said you witnessed that in your church,
Yes.
where you saw one. What did that look like?
To me, it was the most frightening thing that I've ever seen. It was almost like an explosion of emotion.
She just started crying, started screaming, started running.
She started yelling and screaming.
Okay.
And the trigger was she wanted her sons to sit in a particular place. And once she did that, she got louder and louder, and then started yelling and screaming. It was just like her breaking point. We all saw it, all together, the congregation that was there. And it frightened me so until I couldn't understand it. Her sons wanted to go play basketball the next day. I said,
Mm-hmm.
oh, no. Because I didn't know what was going on.
Now I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit now because I'm just I'm a butthole sometimes, so don't pay me no attention. Now that's that old Baptist side of you. Now Anthony Perry would have told you that was a demon, and y'all should really can't.
Here's the thing. We tell individuals, don't demonize everything. If God allows sickness, so if He allows cancer, we know He didn't create it, but He allows it.
Okay.
So it's just like a person saying that, look, you need to take your cancer treatment, but now you need to stop taking them pills that doctor gave you for your mind.
Mm-hmm.
We as a society, we as a community, as a Black community, we have to validate both.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. All right, so let's so like I told you, I asked the audience if they Facebook audience on my page if they thought, and the question is still valid. Here the question is, if you look across the top of the screen, can a person lose their mind? Doc says yes, a person can have a psychotic episode or a psychotic breakdown. That's the proper term as it relates to losing your mind. And we pray, and in scripture we teach the whole armor of God, right? And we talk about putting on the helmet of salvation, and when your head is properly clothed or properly protected, right? That protects you in instances like that, and the way you feed your mind and all those types of things. But I wanted to ask the audience what they thought about it. And I asked one particular person, Emmanuel. Emmanuel said no. He said it's their choice. Now, Emmanuel kind of harsh. He said we could say the same thing about suicide. So that's Emmanuel. What do you think about Emmanuel's answer, Dr. Evans?
Clinical depression is just what it is. Mm-hmm. One of the guys who was a friend of a friend who committed suicide, he and his wife had a marriage that she said she was happy. They had just had a son. He made plenty of money, and he wasn't sick physically. Mm-hmm. So I believe that there was a chemical imbalance. That had nothing to do with his situations. Now, I know another friend, her uncle raised her. When her uncle died, she was depressed. She started taking an antidepressant. When we look at things like that, we can't say suicide itself is a choice.
Yeah.
Okay. But now to be depressed, to be suicidal, can be something that is tied to a chemical imbalance or a mental illness. So if the person with cancer that the doctor said is no cure, is this, is still a choice for them,
Hmm.
because they can live it out being sick, or they can hold on by faith. So so no, I don't think being depressed is a choice. And I'm talking about clinical depression.
Okay.
Not too long ago, and I shared this during a sermon. I was sitting here by myself, and I was thinking, just about life,
Yeah.
and I thought in a very negative way. And within a 5 to 10 minute span, those same negative thoughts, I decided not to have them, and I filled my mind with positive thoughts,
Yes.
and it changed my disposition.
Absolutely.
It changed how I felt. But now that wasn't clinical depression.
No.
Clinical depression is that God has provided doctors with the know-how for certain medications and psychotherapy to help. But I didn't need psychotherapy. I just needed to change the way I thought.
Hmm. Yeah. And so that's something that that's something I want to talk about a little bit too. Because, and hear me well, audience, hear me well. And let me see what Miss Milton said. Miss Milton said she agrees with Dr. Evans. You can lose your mind. The mind has a mind of its own, so to speak. We like to think we have control of it at all times, but we don't. She said nobody asked for schizophrenia, for example, or some serious mood disorder.
Hmm.
You and only you control so much of your mind to an extent. I agree with that.
Look, who
All right,
who
so
who, who asked? Let me ask you this: who would ask for Alzheimer's?
I can't think of nobody
The,
who has
the
that.
youngest person on record that I have knowledge of was 45 years old,
Wow.
whose wife saw him drive around the house, the neighborhood. She went out and flagged him, and he said, "I couldn't remember the house."
Yeah.
45 years old.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the mind, the idea that we thank God that we have a mind that works, that is a praise that we can give God every day.
Mm.
And I always say, when I look in the mirror and I recognize the face that looks back at me, we
Mhm.
ought to tell the Lord, thank you.
Absolutely. So, but this is what I want to say to the audience as well, and those who are listening, especially when we in this battle for our mind, because
Mhm.
we mean that's if we give up our mind, we give up everything, right? We give up
Yeah.
our bodies, we give up all. So, the thing we got to understand, right, is that every negative emotion needs a body,
Mhm.
right? And whenever that negative emotion comes to our minds, it's looking for life, it's looking
Mhm.
for fermentation, it's looking for something that's going to allow it to germinate and give it the power, right? Because if it doesn't have a body, then it doesn't have anything to live through.
Right.
But once we start giving voice, once we start giving place, that's why James said, give no place to the devil, right?
Right.
Once you start giving authority, when you start allowing them or those emotions to come into your life and take up residency, then those are the steps to, I believe, to start that having that. I'm gonna say losing your mind, but that's a colloquial way of saying it, but to potentially having it. Well, I'm gonna say it this way since I'm learning. Y'all teaching me. I appreciate you, Doc. But those are the steps that kind of help build that anxiety. Is
Yeah.
that a good way of saying it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. And if we start with medication for a person who has had a psychotic break, and then the psychotherapy piece of talking about it, the cognitive behavioral therapy, understand the connection between your thoughts and behavior,
Mm-hmm.
but also family counseling, marital counseling, because if a person is experiencing a psychotic break, it affects everyone in the family. Mental illness affects everyone in the family. No
Okay.
one goes unscathed by it, simply because you have to live with a person who's living with it. And if they're not receiving help, then they're just going through what they go through. And it can be very confusing, and it can be detrimental to relationships. Um, I know some adults who don't have anything to do with their parents because their parents are still untreated.
Wow.
So instead of going back or having a relationship, they break ties.
Wow. 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 Let me read another comment. And this was a practical example that a lady gave on my page today, Bernadette. This is what Bernadette said. Bernadette said, yes, one of my neighbors, he was a MP in the Marines, never did drugs or alcohol, track star in high school, but caught his wife cheating. And now he's walking the streets talking to himself, sleeps outside, etc. We don't see him coming back. We don't see no coming back for him. It hurts to see him in this condition. She said this man was an MP in the military.
Wow.
Was a former track star. Was doing so well. Caught his wife cheating, and it broke him.
Yeah.
And now he's walking the streets, sleeping outside, talking to himself. But then some people have the nerve to say, and I just don't get it, man. I mean, projection is one thing, but projection and insensitivity is a whole different thing, right? Just because I made it, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm like the songwriter. It could have been me, you know what I'm saying, outdoors, but thank God it wasn't. And heck, it almost was, you know what I'm saying? It very much almost was, had I not had a village, or if I had not had an inner spirit that I can call on, the Holy Spirit, all those types of things. So yeah, that's what do you think? And I'm sure you see people like that. They talk about most of a lot of the prison population, people that deal with people who have that are mentally ill.
Yes. We see it all the time. And remember, one of those causes for mental illness for a psychotic break can be trauma. So for the men who fought in Vietnam 50 years ago, who still have nightly dreams about what they saw, what they experienced, that is some deep trauma. Deep trauma that you remember it very vividly to the point where it still comes to you and you still live with it, although it was 50 years ago.
Wow.
That's how deep the trauma is. So walking in or your spouse having an affair on you can be just as detrimental, although we see war as something totally different. But now we can understand that, and also there could have been other things, other underlying issues that were there.
Mm-hmm.
The Marines is a tough branch of the service.
Yeah.
So the pressure that he survived from that. All of these things could have contribute. There's a lot of alcoholism. Soldiers have come back and killed their entire families, and we know that's an extreme, but that has happened.
Yeah.
So they were fine before they left overall. So they experienced war, they experienced trauma, and then there's a break.
Yeah, that's tough, and I empathize for people, like I said, and I'm gaining a new respect. I'm really gaining a new respect for therapists. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm definitely I'm gaining a new respect. Just the questions they ask, the layers they try to uncover, based on your conversation. Man, I be finding myself crying like a little girl sometimes. But I ain't gonna say like a little girl. I guess a grown girl can cry too. But I be like, man, she be like, what? She be like, well, what happened right there? I'm like, leave me alone. I don't want to talk right now. I got to go through it. Let me read one more. Let me read one more comment, and I ain't gonna hold you long tonight, Doc. I promise you, because I want to go to bed myself. But Nicole came on. I mean, what Nicole said, she said, yes, loss implies separation. The older generation used to call it being clothed in your right mind.
Mama.
She said, we all have the propensity to cross over and check out mentally. It's also referred to as a nervous breakdown, lifing, trauma, and adulting can do this to any of us if we allow it.
Yeah, it is very much a part of life, and no life is void of it. Just last night, I was listening to Jasper Williams' I can't think of which son, Jasper Williams III.
Okay.
You know, he talked about his mental illness.
Okay.
He talked about taking sabbaticals. He talked about the pressure and the stress of life.
Yeah.
And I refuse to allow myself to judge someone when I have not walked in their shoes.
Mm.
You know, I knew an alcoholic in my hometown. We used to call him Pie. Pie was an alcoholic. He used the bathroom on himself. He was drunk every day, all day. Um, but now his mother was killed in the storm, and his life kind of went downhill from that point. Um, you know, stuff happens, and we can be critical of people, but being critical is not being helpful.
At all.
You know, if I'm going to be critical, I might as well hold that and just pray, because we do not understand where someone has walked or how their lives developed.
Yeah. Elder Lisa Smith, she's been saying some good stuff there. She said also our diet is dependent on our mental health as well as our physical health. Loss of potassium negatively affects the mind.
Yes.
She said, I have witnessed in others experiences menopause in women with hormonal imbalances. So many things can cause mental issues. It's so important that we study the human body and its effects on normal and abnormal physiological disorders.
Yeah, I agree. Diet, sleep. You know, someone can be so sleep deprived until they have a psychotic episode.
Man, I heard what's that dude named what's the big white dude named with the church in Houston? Osteen, Joel Osteen.
Yes.
But I heard his dad preach a sermon before he passed, Pastor John Osteen. And he talked about guard your mind.
Yes.
And he was talking about putting on the whole armor of salvation, the helmet of salvation. And man, more than ever right now, I think it's important that we guard our minds. You know what I'm saying? It's just a different time now. And I remember in college, undergrad, one of my teachers, because I went back to college. I went to college at 18, 19, but then I went back. I didn't finish then. I made a check at the car dealership and I quit. I'm like, man, $1,200, I can make this, man. I quit. So I went back when I got in the car business. But then when I got older, I went back to school, And when I went back as a 34, 35-year-old student, one of the teachers said that we should be lifelong learners. That was her word. We should be lifelong learners. And so many of us don't realize how we stop the learning process, right? When you get out of high school, if you don't go to college, if you don't do research, if you don't read, depending on what you read, if you only read tabloids, if you only watch social media, you really, really stop the learning process and stunt your growth. And your mind becomes susceptible to more things, right? Grandmama and them gave us beans and cornbread for a reason, because they knew if they fed us at 6 o'clock some beans and cornbread, that beans and cornbread was gonna stick to the bones, right? So you ain't gonna be running back in the kitchen at 7:30. So y'all feed them kids ramen noodles and TV dinners and wonder why they're hungry again in 15 to 20 minutes, because you ain't gave nothing that stuck to their bones, right? So when it comes to our minds, if we don't feed our minds with the proper things, like for instance, whenever I would go, like I finished my one graduate degree, I almost finished the second degree, but whenever I would get ready to go back to school, I would recalibrate my mind. I read a novel first, or then I read something else a little bit deeper and start recalibrating it, because I wanted to get prepared my mind so that I could absorb it. Because at a certain point, if I'm trying to read certain things and my mind's not calibrated, I'll be reading it, then have to read it over again, then have to, read it 4 or 5 times to really figure it out, but because my mind is not primed to read it. But my point is, we have to guard and protect our minds, because man, it's United Negro College Fund said it best: a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And it's not just on drugs either. It's just in general. So what you think, Doc? What we got to do? What do you recommend people to do to have healthy mental health, if that's a word?
We have to confront it. We have to confront it within ourselves. We have to confront it within our loved ones. a generation can be dependent on whether or not we deal with it or whether or not we sweep it under the rugs.
A generation can be
Yes.
dependent on.
And if it's something that has or some type of predisposition, then we can see it affecting the next generation and that generation failing to deal with it. In most of our communities, there's help. There's local help, but we just have to have the courage to reach out and accept that help. Another thing that we do, we encourage a support system. That I'm just not going through this life, me, myself, and I, but I have a group of men who stand with me, who do not condemn me, because we're all undone, a work in progress. So that makes us the same. My issue may not be your issue, but I guarantee you we all have issues. So can we establish a support group that will give us that additional leverage when we're faced with a difficulty? The difference between somebody who walks through a therapy door and the person who does not, many times it depends on your support system.
Yeah.
Those who come and join you and walk through with you so that you know that you're not by yourself. Now, I have been in therapy myself twice at two different times in my life. I don't mind sharing that because, again, I am a mental health professional, so I can't have the stigma within myself for something that we encourage people to do. So I don't mind sharing that.
Okay.
So we have to take away the stigma, get the help that we need. In Mississippi, we do have a committal process. If you have a family member who is refusing help, but you see them becoming more and more unraveled, more and more disassociated with reality, there's a way of getting help for your loved one, even though they say that they do not want it. There's a process. So we have to utilize every avenue that we have, and pray that God does the rest.
All right. That's good. That's good stuff to do. Committal, huh? Can that be good and bad? Do they have to? Because is there some kind of proof to show that they have the signs or something? Because
Yes,
I don't want to get somebody mad and make them mad, then they all of a sudden commit me.
No. You have to here in Mississippi. I don't know how it is in Atlanta or Arkansas, but now in Mississippi, you go through 3 evaluations by 3 different professionals. And then a judge makes the final decision, because remember, it's against that person's decisions. It's against their will. Gotcha. That you're saying they need hospitalization. And usually you're looking at those who are in danger to themselves or those who endanger others.
All right, we're going to wind this down. We got about 2 more minutes, but I'm gonna ask you one final question, and we're gonna let it go. And I appreciate you for this information. These shows aren't as popular as the ones about relationships. Like I told him last week, Doc. I told him last week, heck, you want relationship advice from me? I failed in my relationship. So I don't know why you want relationship advice from me, but I failed. But I failed forward. Don't get me wrong. But I can tell you what not to do. So that's why I try not to do a lot. But this is the question I want to ask: as a community, as a village, as loved ones, what signs should we look for if we think someone might be suffering with mental illness, might be getting ready to experience a breakdown? What kind of signs?
Well, I think we look for the symptoms of that person not taking care of their daily living skills. Not bathing, not shaving, not eating, the isolation, the not sleeping. All of these type of oddities that says that something is wrong. And especially if you talk about hallucinations and delusions, hallucinations are tied to sensory. So when you hear, when you see things, the delusions are just part of a thought process. You're delusional when you say that the police are following me around 24 hours a day.
Gotcha.
The FBI have bugged my phone at home. Those are delusions. So especially when those things are present, and sometimes just some odd questions that a loved one or friend ask.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a friend of mine, a coworker, asked me one time, "What do I do if I think someone is watching my home?" And I said, "What do you mean? What? They're parked outside. Go take
Oh, wow.
go take a picture of the tag and send it to me. I'll have somebody find out who the vehicle belongs to."
Okay.
You know, so
Paranoia.
it was irrational.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So we've talked about mental health tonight. We've asked the question: can a person lose their mind? Doc explained. He said he might not think it's losing their mind, but he think a person can experience a psychotic breakdown. Some people call it a nervous breakdown. Some people call it a psychotic episode. Whatever it might be, it's real. It can happen. The stressors of life, as Anthony said, and as Nicole stated, life is gonna keep lifing. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just of the opinion that, and I learned how to play spades at an early age, 6, 7 years old. I was playing spades, and one of the first things I learned about spades is that you got to play the cards that life deals, right?
Yeah.
But if you could do it skillfully, you always also remember that you have a partner, and your partner just might have what you don't have. Now, if we as Christians, we got a partner. We have that's an advocate with the Father, so we got a comforter, so we cool on that end. So that's how we make it through the stressors of life. I almost lost it. I thought, I ain't gonna lie, Doc, I was nervous. I called you. I promise you I did. We had a good conversation, and you talked me off the ledge. But through it all, I'm good. And you know what I am more than anything now? I'm conscious.
Yes.
I'm conscious, and I'm aware that, number one, I'm not the only entity in this situation. You know what I'm saying? Because what happened is, man, because sometimes when reality checks are real, right? Reality checks are like brick walls sometimes, man, and they'll mess you up if you're not careful. A good old fashioned reality check will do it for you. But I'm good now. I'm good. Like I said, I'm conscious. I'm enjoying this journey. I'm embracing it. I'm looking forward. My thing is, I can only come out better. I can't come out worse. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yes.
man, why not go through it? I can go through kicking and screaming, or I can just go through it. Or I can sit at home and continue to try to do stuff on my own. When reality suggests, guess what? I don't have to do it on my own.
Yeah.
I don't have to do it on my own. I'm good. So I'm gonna ride it out, man. I'm gonna ride it out. I'm gonna do it like the old folk you said in the church. I'm gonna run on and see what the end gonna be. And 99 and a half just ain't gonna do. And if I'm on the path to better, if I'm truly on the path to better, and I do believe I am, then I'm gonna stay on this path. And every day, I'm going to become a little more me. And I'm cool with that. You know what I'm saying? I might miss it some days, but I'm going to embrace the power of now.
Yes.
And I'm going to keep living, man. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa said, we're forever fighting for better states in life. We never achieve success if we never go through anything, man. I read it one time. It said, you go through, sometimes you groan through, GROAN, but at the end, you grow through it. And that's where I'm at, man. And here it is, and I'm out of here, Doc, and you can give us the final words in just a moment. But a lot of what we go through in life is rooted in perception, right? It's rooted in perception, how we view life, and typically we view life how we view ourselves. If we view ourselves in a negative light, then we're going to view life in a negative light. But I just believe that as we go through this life, right, and life lends its lessons, and we learn how to consider the clues, that We take the here it is. Once we are presented, right, with new information, new scenarios, new things in our environment, new things in our community, and there are things that challenge the norm, right? Once we're presented with that information, I think we acquiesce and put that information into our repertoire, put it into our mental database, and if it's enough to change us or to make us reevaluate, you know what I'm saying? It makes us, because sometimes that's the key to help us evolve to the next level, right? Donna Parsons say, if you continue to go with what you know, you always end up where you were. I don't want to stay where I am. You know what I'm saying? And if the Lord if He let me see 70, I got 18 more, 18 in almost about 3 weeks. 2 more weeks. My birthday's in a couple more weeks. So if I make it to 70, I got a little ways to go, a little over 18 years, right? And I hope I live a lot longer than that. But if I do make it to that, I don't want to stay stuck where I am.
No.
Every day I want to be a little bit more me.
Yes.
I was talking to a friend of mine the other night, and we were talking about changing, when changes occur, and I said, I'm a fast learner. You know what I'm saying? If I go touch the stove and the stove is hot, I'm probably not going to touch that stove again, because why? I learned it's hot.
Right.
It don't take me all day to learn anymore. I'm of age now, and so if I see something that I've done wrong, I know how to correct course, correct behavior, you know what I'm saying, and change, But that's a whole nother tangent. Give us closing words, Doc. We got to get out of here.
Well,
on the bed tonight.
First of all, my brother, I just want to thank you for bringing a subject to your audience that is needed by every family, by every individual, to enrich our lives and to make life what God created life to be. And He says that I came to give you life and more abundant. So we don't, God never places us in things or gives us situations that are meant to destroy us, but they are meant for our growth. So I see everything in life that God allows to happen. Nothing can happen unless He allows it. So I see mental health issues or mental illness just one of those challenges to make us love life more, live more. And I can tell you this, since some of the major changes in my life, I feel myself living more.
Wow.
Not necessarily being controlled by people or caring what people think. And I know people say that all the time, but I'm talking about getting to a place where you look to God. You never look for your affirmation from those around you. And dealing with our mental health is just as important as dealing with our bodies, dealing with our spirits. I think we have to look at the triune man and make sure all those needs are met, because God would have it that way.
Yeah, that's good stuff, Doc. That's good stuff. And this is not the only time we're going to deal with. We'll probably have some other subjects, because it's a whole month of mental health. So I might reach out to Anthony. He went through a very traumatic situation. But yeah, actually, okay, we will have a show next week because I'll be in town. The following week I'll be traveling. So that's the week I'll be traveling. So, but yeah, so I'm good stuff tonight, Doc. I appreciate you. Psychotic breakdown. That's what you said. Psychotic breakdown. That's good stuff. I hope y'all enjoyed the show. These kind of shows I put on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, because this is stuff that people really check that out. But God, I've had Dr. Ray Evins with me today, with Pastor Ray Evins. Anthony, we're gonna talk of Southside Baptist Church in Columbus, Mississippi. And I appreciate you coming on tonight.
Appreciate you, brother.
No problem. So as I always say when we get ready to get out of here, I say that the world, Anthony, y'all know Anthony's the one who produced this track for me, the music. That wasn't him on the organ, but that was Chief on the organ. But Anthony was putting that thing together though. He mixed it up. So I appreciate Anthony for putting Anthony. Hey man, I started at church back in the day, and Anthony played for drive an hour and a half. That's not true. All right. So as I always say, the world is changing. So my question is, why do you remain? You all want to be a blessing. I want to cash out tonight. There it is. You're welcome. But Dr. Evins and I are out.